the whole world are watching, and then you just think like, if this goes wrong, it's my first year in Formula One. If this goes wrong, what am I going to do if I'm not in Formula One? Because this is all I've lived for my whole life. I wasn't the smartest guy in school, and I struggled quite a bit in school. What am I going to fall on, right? If all of this goes wrong, and even just having those thoughts is already.
And this is all swilling around while you're still trying to drive a Formula One car to the best of your ability.
Exactly, and always putting on like the smiley face for the cameras and all those kind of things. Like that's not the easiest thing, but you just get into that point when like even I had maybe 3 or 4 races where I was just struggling a little bit, and I had Carlos as my teammate at that point, and he was doing a very good job. He was getting to grips with the car and extracting everything out of it. And just 3 or 4 races where like he beat me, and I was just like, what do I do? I just got to the point where I don't know, is this the end of it? It's like, what if I can't just find something else? I didn't know what to do at that point.
That sounds quite lonely. Did it feel like? It
is, yeah, especially because I'm a guy who doesn't like to talk too much. I guess sometimes I do, but a lot of the time I like to keep things like hidden and tucked inside and stuff. And when I have problems, I tend not to talk about them. Especially back then, definitely didn't talk about them as much as what I do now. So a lot of it is my mind, how like I like to think of it more on my own. And
how self-critical were you being at this point?
I say too much. Like I'm definitely my biggest critic, but like I think a lot of pros and you see footballers or Formula One drivers, whoever it is, I think they're their own biggest critics by a long way. But I think you need to learn the balance of it, and also know when to pat yourself on the back a little bit and say you've done a good job. But there was a lot less of that than there was of bringing myself down. So always having that self-doubt and that being critical of myself and just thinking on my own, and not like allowing others to help me as much as I could, because I always thought it would be my fault, not someone else's. And I would hate to ever blame it on someone else. So
this is a good conversation then, because we were joined by an explorer called Nims Purger.
Yeah.
And he said excuses remove the learnings.
Yeah.
Right. So you're looking at Carlos, for those that don't know much about Formula One, that is the first judge is your teammate, right? That's the first person to beat. And you've been beaten 3 or 4 races running by him. I'd love to know the process you went through to work that out in your own head, because if you just think, oh, well, he's been in the team longer, or he's been in the sport longer, or he's more experienced than me, the excuses are removing the learning.
I could never use experience as the excuse. Like that was one I could. Like now I feel like I can use it because I've learned about how much it can actually change you.
Yep.
But at that point, I would never want to use the excuse apart from it's myself. And
I hadn't thought about that though. Of course, you can't use experience as an excuse because you've got no understanding of what experience gives you.
Exactly. And until that point, I've only ever done 1 year in every category I've done. So I've not spent those multiple years like I've done now in Formula One. And I just hated to use it. If someone can say, why has he done better than you here? I go, he's just more experienced. Like it's such an easy thing to say and to use. And I just really never wanted to use it. But like now I have a much better understanding, and I can go, I know I didn't do that as well because of the experience. But I know at that point I would never have used it.
So what did you?
I think there's just a lot of hours and days, probably months, of it just like swirling in your head, and you're thinking things over and over again. Like, why has he done that better? How has he done that better? What's he thinking of? How does he spend his time? And then you do it to yourself, like, what am I not doing good enough? Why am I not doing it as good as him? Is it because of this or that or this or that? And you just come up with all of these excuses for yourself. But then I kind of got to a point when, because it was 4 races instead of the 3, it was 4. Like, what differences? Like, kind of got to the point when I started to realize, like, what else can I do now to make some changes? And it was like coming here, spending a little bit more time with my engineers, sitting down, just refreshing everything, kind of starting again a little bit, and trying to get some of that self-confidence back inside, because that's one of the biggest things. Like, if I go out and I think, I'm confident I can go out and break at this point, and I can deliver the lap when I need to. Just thinking of these little things can already start to just click and start to just make things turn over a little bit. And that's when like small things started. But it's just getting to that point, which is the difficult part.
See, what's fascinating there, though, is because it's often referred to, what you described in Lando, as the psychological cage. Yeah. So where the weight of expectation, everyone's looking at you, your eyes are on you. is heavy,
Yeah.
or the fear of consequences of getting it wrong and making mistakes feels too steep.
Yep.
They squeeze you focus on your own ability and what you can do. So how did you dial down the expectation levels and sort of minimise the fear of getting it wrong to be able to then focus on what you could do differently?
I think it gets to like when you're thinking of things for so long, like you start to, I think I was luckily at a point where I could think of a couple of positive things every now and then. And I'm like, I am in Formula One. Like, there must be some things that I do very well.
So you caught yourself doing things right?
Yes. Like, I think what's tricky is, like, sometimes just understanding that. And I think that's when people suffer even more is when they maybe don't see those kind of things. But I think I was still able to understand a few of them and think, I'm here because I'm good enough in many, many circumstances and with many things. What are they? And just maximize them. So you kind of think, how can I still maximize what I know I'm good at? And then when I started to think a little bit more on those, that's when you then think of some of those other things you might definitely not be as good at. And then that's when I could start to pick out a few more of the pieces and think, okay, now I can just start to focus a little bit on this and a little bit on this, and then you can start taking those little steps forward. But for me, almost it was realizing what I'm good at first, and then it kind of, you don't get lost with everything you're thinking of. You're not thinking, am I actually fast enough? You because that's such a general term to use. It's I know I'm fast enough. I know I'm good in these circumstances, and then it starts to even out like the graph of, okay, these are the couple places I'm definitely not good enough. And it's just then I can focus on them when you have something to focus on rather than just being completely lost with so many things. And then you just think of them, you speak about them a little bit, and then you spark conversations, and then you talk about them, and you just get some slightly better understandings, and then you start to gain some momentum and go from there again.
I think what's really powerful for people to hear in this conversation is that what you haven't said is, I decided I wanted to win a race. I decided I wanted a podium. I decided I was going to be 0.3 of a second quicker over a lap. Those are all outcome-focused goals.
Exactly.
You clearly went into the process and focused on the process.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're in a competition side of it and you want to win. When you want that, that you want that reward, something that's going to give you so much pleasure and the team pleasure. It's easy to think of it that way, but I guess there's like when I think of I'm good enough to be in Formula One, there's also things which I will be thinking of and ways of how I work, which are also going to be good enough, or good building blocks at least. So I think there was parts of me which I knew were strong enough to like kind of start to realize these things and create a bit of change. And I was lucky I kind of had those things at least to be able to work from and to start thinking slightly differently and so on. Of course, like if I didn't have that, I could still be in that bit of a spiral and not be thinking I'm still good enough to be in this position and stuff like that. But as soon as I start a little bit, I don't think I just need to go out and beat him all of a sudden. But like, how am I going to beat him and the processes? Then you start to realize how you can make change.
So what top tips would you give to people listening to this, Lando, that maybe are in that fog of confusion, maybe feeling a bit lost? And
well, I think like one thing I've not really mentioned as much, or I mentioned a little bit earlier, was the one thing for me that motivates me more than anything is enjoyment and just fun. Like it's a nice little word, but it's maybe like an immature word to use, but it's fun and enjoyment. Like if I'm enjoying something, it makes me work harder and makes me want it more. And then it's a positive spiral of if I work harder, I reward myself more, I enjoy it more, and I work harder, and it's just you keep going up. I'd say maybe I got to a point where I wasn't enjoying it as much.
Really?
And
can you remember when that point was?
I can't exactly.
It's in the first season, though.
It will be in the first season, like maybe halfway towards 3/4 of the way through, and I just was like, because you're thinking of so many things, you're not just thinking of like I'm driving a Formula One car in, freaking America or Japan or whatever it is, which is just awesome. And you start thinking about it and it just clouds your judgment, like you said. So, the first few things are like maybe which I would say sparked it off is I need to enjoy it. you know. And I think even like my manager and my trainer could kind of tell what was going on a little bit at this point. And there was a little bit more time spent on having some days away, enjoying my life, and maximizing my days at home, you know, with my family or with my friends, whatever it was, going out a little bit, going out to dinners again, and that kind of just frees your mind up a little bit. So I think maybe the first key point is enjoyment. You know, are you enjoying it? Yes or no? And kind of understanding, can you enjoy it? Like, it's maybe not easy for people to enjoy the job that they have or whatever they're doing. But I know I could enjoy Formula One and the job I'm in. So I know I could enjoy it. It's just understanding what kind of brought that to me and so on. And then you can go into those, start kind of picking up on those details, those smaller details again. But for me, the main thing is the enjoyment and how can I do that? Once I get back into that mentality, it's then what we just spoke about, is the picking up on the, what am I good at? What do I know like I'm strong in? And then finding the places that you're weak in and kind of just going from there.
Hey guys, it's Jake here. Listen, before you go, please do me just one favour. Hit subscribe. It makes such a difference to us. The more subscribers we get, then the bigger the channel becomes. The bigger the channel becomes, the bigger the names we can attract and the more impact we can have for you. So thanks for watching and please subscribe right now.